All right. Hi, everybody. Welcome to Sleep, Stress, and Emotions with Essential Oils. Thanks for joining us virtually. We actually have planned to do this series online as well. And just because of what's happening, we got to dip our toes in the water of online continuing education classes because the Kiwanis Center is, of course, closed, and social distancing is an important thing for all of us to acknowledge right now. And so we're glad to still connect with technology and all of that. Um, One of the first things that I wanted to do tonight on this class, as we talk about sleep and stress and emotions in general, was to check in and see how people are at with their sleep, how stressed you are in your life, how you feel you are emotionally. And this was always a part of this class. And it just seems like such perfect timing for all of us to have this type of a class right now. I think as you answer these questions, I want you to write it down, like on a scale of 1 to 10, how you feel with these three questions. And maybe even be aware of how you feel now because of COVID-19 and social isolation, how it's different than how you would have answered this question, say, 2, 3 weeks ago. And just be like, take some note of that to kind of assess where you're at and maybe what some of your needs are, so that as we go through this talk, you can write down some simple ways to support your body. This is going to be about all kinds of things, not just essential oils, but just some really practical tips for reducing stress, improving your quality of sleep, how to like manage and support your emotions in all kinds of ways. So the first question is, how often are you aware of being stressed in your daily life on a scale of 1 to 10? So just kind of consider how often in a week, if you're even just 1 to 10 times is a good scale. If you only notice like once a week you feel stressed, your stress level is probably pretty low. If you notice every day that you have some stress, your stress level is pretty medium. And if you have it, multiple times a day, persistent throughout the day, you're dealing with high levels of stress. So just kind of rate yourself on a scale of 1 to 10. The second question, how concerned are you about the quality of your sleep or quantity? If you're having problems with sleep, obviously you're going to put a higher number, 9, 10, if you like really struggle, or if it's something new. I know I myself have gone to bed thinking of new things that I have to do that I didn't have to do before we had this virus going around. I'm like, okay, now I'm not just planning, regular meals and, packing lunches. I'm also planning, how I'm going to educate my kids and planning all of the food we're eating and all the things, right? It's a lot more mental load for us right now because we have more things that we're all considering, whether you're suddenly working at home or you're worried about people who are lonely and you're connecting with people, and there's a lot, right? There's a lot we're all going through. And so maybe that's affecting your sleep. For me, I was like staying up late and thinking about all the things, and I was having a hard time sleeping. For the first week, I would say I'd be up for hours and hours just laying there until I, foolishly reminded myself that I have essential oils for that and have actually been able to make a big improvement in the last week. Last question, how frequently do your emotions feel difficult to manage appropriately? Since having 4 kids home for homeschool, this is more frequent than usual. I get mad at the dumbest things and then I'm like having to walk away, reassess, and cool down. Moms of little kids, you maybe relate, but we're gonna kind of jump into sleep first. I want to talk about sleep. Before we get into that, I just feel like it's important for us to acknowledge just how important this topic is these days. Mental health is something that we need to address in the world, and I think it's even more relevant right now. I think people who rely on, friends and getting together to manage their mental wellness, who are now suddenly socially isolated, is a big problem. And we actually have heard of a friend who had committed suicide because he was quarantined in his home and it was too much for him. And so I'm very well aware of how this is affecting people. And I think it's just really important topic right now. I myself have dealt with stress in the past. Before we had our first son, we had 4 miscarriages, basically back to back at varying stages of pregnancy. And when I had my first son, because of, I think, of all the hormonal changes that had happened to me over the year previous, when I had him, I went into a very dark postpartum depression period. And I didn't talk about it with a lot of people. I really kept it, close to my chest, and just thought it was my problem. And that if I admitted to anyone that I was struggling, that I would be a bad mom and all the things that we go through. And for me, over the years, I've realized the importance of talking about these issues and being real about it. And in a lot of ways, we're doing okay right now at home. Like we're actually handling things pretty well, but I know that's not the case for everybody. And I've been there, and I want you guys to know that I feel you. You're allowed to feel the way that you're feeling right now, and it's totally normal. As we talk about mental health and stress, I just feel like sleep is a good place to start. It's maybe the easier of the topics. So we're going to kind of skip over this section of the handout just for now, and we're going to come back to it in a sec. So if you look at the bottom there, it says 70% of problem sleeping are related to psychophysiological issues. So most of the time, people don't have a medical reason for having poor sleep, poor quality sleep. And it's usually because of increased stress in their life. It's usually because of that increased cortisol. So we know stress, I'm going to get into this a little bit more when we talk about stress, but we know that stress increases our cortisol levels. The hypothalamus, you can actually kind of see that in that section there. It triggers that stress hormone. It basically sends a message to your adrenals, and it's like, okay, guys, it's go time. Increase the cortisol because this person needs to act in a higher state than normal. But when we have that increased cortisol over a long period of time, it's very dangerous for us. It's very bad place for us to be because it causes all kinds of health conditions, both mental health and physical symptoms. And so most of our sleep problems are because of that. And so it's important to acknowledge that. And I think it's actually good news in that it means there's something we can do about it, right? If most of our sleep problems are based on our own stress levels, we can take action on our stress and then also be able to help ourselves sleep better. So it's good news. It's good news and bad news because maybe that seems like a daunting task for you. But there's some really simple ways to improve your sleep quality. And I love teaching this class because it's something that was like a game changer for me when I came into doTERRA and learned about essential oils. Is so many nights I would have problems sleeping, and everyone was just saying, "Oh, you're a new mom." I mean, I'm not a new mom anymore. My oldest is 10, but they were like, "It's normal. Nobody gets any sleep. Everybody's tired." And I was like, "No, like it's not that I have a kid waking up. It's that when I lay down to sleep, I can't sleep, and I need to because I need to get up in a few hours, right?" And so when I came into doTERRA and I was introduced to things that would actually help support my sleep, it made such a big difference for me, which made me it actually helped my postpartum because I was getting more sleep and therefore able to be a more engaged mom. So simplest ways to improve your sleep are to reduce your stress, which we'll get to. We're going to talk about that a little bit more. To go outside. I mean, some of these things are probably not new information. Go outside every single day. Even if you can't go for a walk, just, sit on your porch in the sun if you can. Even in the wintertime, be outside for at least 15 to 20 minutes every day. Exercise is important. however that looks to you. You know, some of you might be like, I'm not a gym person, I don't run, I don't want to do any of that stuff. It doesn't mean that. Basically, it just means you have to move your body somehow. Walking is actually one of the most recommended ways of getting exercise every day. Maybe it means dancing in your kitchen. I don't know. Whatever works for you guys. Um, Exercise is important. We know nutrition is really important. And those of us who maybe struggle with nutrition, there are some simple things that you can do to make a difference. So one that I recommend all the time is taking a digestive enzyme. This might be something you've never thought of before, but having a digestive enzyme allows your body to digest your food more efficiently, which means that your body is not increasing the amount of stress it's putting on your system as it's trying to digest its food, which in turn gives your body more energy to do other processes that it needs to do and makes it more efficient. And when your gut is healthy, then a lot of other things follow suit. So we know that emotions are very closely tied to your gut health. And if something's funky in with your digestive system, then your emotions are often out of whack as well. It's just kind of how this goes. And so your sleep is also tied to that as well. Sometimes people have problems sleeping because of bowel issues or even just like excess bloating and gas and digestive discomfort. And so a digestive enzyme might actually help with that one specific area. Sleep hygiene is important too. I know a lot of people don't think about this, but sleeping in a clean environment with fresh air, if you can, with the window open, clean sheets, brushing your teeth before bed, washing your face, whatever your routine is, actually help you sleep. Engaging in a sleep routine just before you go to sleep is a really good way to tell your brain that it's time to sleep. And so set up, a few things in your routine that you always do and do them in the same order and kind of get used to this routine. It's so funny. We're so deep in our sleep routine that our dog knows when it's time to go to sleep. Because the minute I start doing my routine, she wanders off into her crate and she waits for us. It's hilarious. She's just as scheduled as we are. But the sleep routine is important. And some of you might not like to hear this, but your phone should have no part in your sleep routine. So we know that stimulating our brains right before we go to sleep is counterproductive. It's stimulating your cells in your eyes. It's stimulating your brain. It's causing you to think about all kinds of things. And who knows what you might encounter while you're playing on your phone. If you're on social media, something might trigger you. You might start thinking of that. You can spiral. Not a good place to be. So the screen should go off 30 minutes before bed. This is the recommendation. That doesn't mean you can't, have your screen time. Just make it earlier before you go to sleep. I promise it will make a big difference. Your environment that you're in is really important. So if it's dark and if there's soothing aromas, this is a well-researched fact. I really enjoy when people talk about soothing aromas. I'm like, yes, point for essential oils. This is where they come into play. Lights off, screens off, essential oils on. So turn your diffuser on at night, or if you don't have a diffuser, rub a drop on your own chest or on your pillow, and it makes a really big difference for us. We love it. Serenity is probably the most used sleep oil at my house, but we love many. There are many options: Serenity, Balance, Lavender, Copaiba, Vetiver, Cedarwood. These are all really great sleep oils. We're going to kind of shift into talking about stress as well. In some ways, these go hand in hand, a little bit related, in that if you increase your sleep, you're likely to decrease your stress, and vice versa. If you decrease your stress, you're likely to increase your sleep. And it's important to try to tackle both at the same time instead of just one at a time. And that's why I often teach this class together with sleep and stress in one class, because I find that they're very closely linked. So transitioning into stress, we talked about it a little bit, but the hypothalamus is basically the control tower of your brain, and it's designed in a way that it's protecting you. So it's the hypothalamus is like the I don't know what you would call it, but like a referee or somebody who's like, okay, it's go time, like your coach, like get up and Adam, you need to get out of there. It's part of your fight or flight response. So if something happens that's jarring, your hypothalamus kicks in and it sends the message to your adrenals, your cortisol level spikes, and that cortisol coursing through your veins is what keeps us in that elevated state. It's a good thing. We want to have adrenaline. We want to have cortisol because we need it at some times. But the problem is that in Western cultures, we're so busy, we're so overworked and overbooked and overscheduled and super stressed out that our cortisol levels remain at this high state all the time. We noticed this when we went to Guatemala and we were talking with some of these workers who work a very hard physical job, and yet they seem to have no stress. We just couldn't believe it. And they says, well, I work hard and I go home and I spend time with my family and I don't think about work, and that's it. And they were so far removed from the stresses of competing for the nicest toys and best brands, and they just didn't have the same level of noise in their life that we had. And I was really struck by that. It's like, there's something very powerful about the simple life, which I actually think is a lesson we're all learning as we're being quarantined at home and enjoying a little bit more of this simple life right now. I'm finding that we're learning how to be able to take things a bit slower and to take better care of ourselves. I hope that's true. I hope you're taking this time to take care of yourself and your loved ones. But when a situation arises that causes you to go into that fight or flight state and your body reacts, your body creates a habitual way of responding to things. And those habits develop over time and they turn into long-term stress. And so it looks like, you have a person at work who stresses you out. And so every time you hear their voice, your temperature goes up, your heart and blood pressure increase, your heart starts racing, and the stress comes over your body. And so there's like usually a stimulus, a trigger, there's a response, and then there's like a physical reaction that happens in your body. When we live in that state of stress all the time, it manifests in physical symptoms. So we know that includes irritability, anxiety, depression, headaches, insomnia, poor immune function, which really is not a good idea right now. We all want to have the best functioning immune systems possible. Increased blood pressure, digestive issues, poor emotional control, difficulty adapting to the environment, troubles with focus, all these things. Tension in your body. Stress really does manifest physically. You've probably experienced that. If you're really stressed, maybe you have an upset stomach. If you're really stressed, you can feel the stress headache coming on, right? So we can see what it does to our bodies and how bad it is. So how do we combat stress? What do we do to reduce our stress? Because the brain is a pattern former, and the brain really likes to make these connections and habits. It loves to adapt to a stimulus and then form that as like the highway to your response. So if you are somebody who like smells something delicious and then you crave it for the rest of the day, you're probably familiar with this brain connection. Or whatever, you see something and it triggers something in you. So we have this trigger and then a response. Our brain like those easy connections. So they'll follow the same neural pathway, the neural connection, and they form those synapses in your brain, and they actually will increase the myelin sheath around those neural connections so that it is simpler to get there, because your brain is trying to optimize the ways that you're doing things. So it does this to create a habit so that you will automatically respond to things, which makes it easier to live your life. But this can turn into bad habits, right? We know all kinds of bad habits form and they become very difficult for us to break. I was a nail biter for a very long time, and just looking at nails that were long was a trigger. Immediately, I would bite them all off. And I was like, why can I not stop doing this? But my brain was working against me. It was completely programmed to do this thing. It was a habit, and sometimes I would do it without like consciously doing it. Singing is another habit of mine that I do unconsciously. I don't realize that I'm doing it. And oftentimes my friends are like, can you not sing in public? I'm like, oh, shoot, I'm sorry. We have these
Right.
habits, right? It is something that happens. So,
No.
one, it's important to recognize what your triggers are for stress. So, if you have something in your life that is constantly triggering you, you have to figure out a way to either remove yourself from the trigger. And if that's not possible, you have to figure out how to interrupt the pattern that happens between the trigger and your response. So, how do we do this? I think if it's a habit, how on earth am I supposed to break it? Good thing there is something called neuroplasticity. This means that your brain is capable of rewiring. So, if you want to shift something in your brain and you want to make a positive association with something, you can actually do that. And you can consciously do that. A really simple way to interrupt a pattern is mindfulness. So you recognize the trigger, you can feel yourself spiraling into stress, and you say, no, I'm not going to do that. But you need a go-to coping mechanism. And so what I like to do is just a breathing technique. It's a very simple technique. I'll take basically any essential oil that I have on hand, something that I like the smell of, something that's maybe grounding, calming, or uplifting, happy, and I'll put it in the palm of my hand. And we're going to talk a little bit more about why essential oils are so good at affecting your emotions in a minute. But you take your essential oil and you rub it in your hands, and then you cup your hands over your nose and mouth. You're going to inhale for 4, hold for 4, exhale for 4. Now, this is going to take what just happened, this trigger, and it's going to reroute it, because now you've introduced something different into your brain, and it's like, this isn't normally what happens in this situation. Normally I yell and scream when I get stressed, or normally I throw something, or normally I honk at the car in front of me. I don't know what situations cause you stress, but if you can interrupt that pattern, that thought pattern, it's going to be really powerful for you gaining control over the way that you react to it. And what happens over time is if you introduce a positive smelling oil, so an oil that you're really connected to, an oil that you love the smell of, and it becomes an anchor for positive thoughts. So what I would do is when I am feeling really good and happy, I smell the oil, and my brain begins to associate it with positive things. You have to remember to do this in your daily life, but it's called anchoring. People have talked about this for years and years. You can anchor when you're studying, right, to help your brain recall the information, when you smell something or see something. And this is very similar to that. So you're going to anchor a nice smelling oil that you like the smell of. A lot of people pick some of the emotional oils and blends for this, or neroli is very powerful for emotional readjusting. And then you just take those moments to breathe it in, inhale, enjoy, and it's going to make a big difference. So some stress reducing tips. Now you'll notice some of these are similar to the sleep reducing tips because, like I said, they all go hand in hand. 1, go for a walk. If you're in a situation and you can leave and you can feel yourself getting stressed, do so. Go outside even just for a 5-minute walk. It makes a big difference. Getting outside, obviously, also very important. I find my breathing technique is what I do most, as well as prayer. That's just who I am. I tend to choose one of those. Prayer should come first for me. And sometimes I use the essential oil to calm down enough so that I'm in the right state of mind to be able to do that. But just do what works for you. Calming hobbies. So finding something that you do that you find very therapeutic and calming and passes time without a lot of high energy or focus, or maybe you enjoy an activity that requires a lot of brain power and focus, like a mental game or brain game, like a word crossword or something, a little bit more tricky, that helps you to disconnect from the stress that you've been going on. But as you are thinking about the hobbies that help you calm down, you also need to be aware of numbing strategies. A lot of us have a strategy that doesn't switch our stress away into positive thinking. All it does is numb it and allows us to forget about it for a little while, which actually is very unhealthy. Common numbing strategies are smoking, alcohol, addictions, binge eating, Netflix, watching TV, those kinds of things that we think, I'm so stressed, I'm just going to do this thing. And that in and of itself becomes one of your habits of coping. And if you're constantly numbing the pain, you'll never be able to find the tools that help you to get out of that stress. So it's really important to acknowledge them and find them and then be aware of them. That doesn't mean you're not allowed to ever drink or watch TV, but just try not to associate it with a reward for stress, because that's where it turns into that numbing strategy. And I get it. Like during the pandemic, I hear people all the time, they're like stocking up for COVID with wine, right? Like it's kind of the jokes that are going around. That's how people are surviving. And this is what we do. This is how humans kind of function. But in a lot of ways, there are just better, healthier ways of dealing with stress. Talking to friends, diffusing oils in your home, getting a massage, taking a bath, all those things are going to be really helpful for decreasing your stress. And for your own health, I'm actually instructing you to relax, to have some downtime, to read a uplifting book. It's like your prescription from the doctor is a vacation. It's like the perfect thing ever to be able to receive. You're like, oh, wait, I have to take more baths and go on more long walks. This sounds delightful. I hope you feel that way and it feels like something you can do. But now more than ever before, I feel like this is so important that we really take it seriously and manage our stress levels. Okay, I don't know if you can see this, if your video is on top of the slide. Mine is a little bit, but there's a couple of options for a nightly routine. If you're somebody who's looking for a little bit more help than just the essential oils, I did talk about some of my favorite essential oils for sleep. If you want me to mention them again, let me know. I can do that. But as far as supplements goes, for sleep, you're going to be looking at the left-hand column there. Serenity soft gels are amazing. I really love them. I don't pull them out every night, so I don't need Serenity soft gels to fall asleep all the time. But when it's really bad, when I'm like, okay, this is ridiculous, I can't sleep, then I'll reach for one and grab it. Some people who have chronic sleep issues will use it daily. And so that just kind of depends on where you're at. It's a mix of lavender. It doesn't have all the Serenity oils in it, I don't think. And passion flower and chamomile and just really great sleeping. It's not just essential oils, it's also an herbal supplement. The other one is Copaiba soft gels. So Copaiba is typically taken for people for pain and inflammation and that kind of a thing, but because it's so soothing to your entire body, your nervous system, you notice that it affects, because you're dealing with the pain, you're able to sleep better. And it's also really good for your emotions and your your mental wellness. So a lot of times people who deal with a lot of stress and that thinking at night, they find copaiba is really soothing at night as well. I've had some people who have taken copaiba in the morning and they say, oh, it's making me feel a little bit sleepy, because they're, so comfortable and relaxed in their body. They've eliminated some of their symptoms that they've been dealing with. And so I say, just take it at night. And that makes a huge difference for people. The alternative nightly regimen on the right there, we haven't talked about some of these things yet, but it's the copaiba soft gels again. But then this time instead of the Serenity soft gels, they've added some things that really help with stress specifically. And I'm not going to get into adaptive right now because we're going to talk about it a bit later. But the Yarrow Palm capsules are a really interesting new item that has come out in doTERRA. These are typically created for beauty. Yarrow Palm is a beauty product. You use it for skin, healthy, glowing skin. And so people are taking it, saying it helps with managing their weight and glowing skin and hair, skin, and nails and the appearance of all of that. And so I didn't think there was much more to it than that. I was like, okay, that's a beauty supplement. I don't think I need that. But I'm coming to learn that it's really beneficial for your immune system. It's got some powerful essential oils in there like Melissa, which is also in the On Guard soft gel, which is dynamite for your immune system. And the Yarrow Palm itself, it's really great at supporting your brain health and just your overall cellular health. And so I've been finding that it's been helping with my stress. It's been helping with my energy. It has for sure improved the look of my hair and nails. My nails are growing faster. So I don't know. It does all kinds of cool stuff. Just not one that you want to overlook. Okay. If you love Serenity, stick with that as your nighttime routine. But if you're somebody who does not really like lavender, which does happen, I would say about 5% of people actually have crazy dreams when they use lavender, or there's a few people who just don't like the smell of it. And so this is a suggestion for people who don't love lavender but want a really nice sleep roller. You can mix it in a roller bottle, or you could do a drop of each in the diffuser before you go to sleep. If you want to take a screenshot of this or a photo, you can, or you can check out the handout that we posted in the email. It's in there as well. So this hibernation roller calls for 20 drops of each. You can decrease that if you want. I would do 10 drops of each, mostly because frankincense is a little bit more expensive of an oil, and also because vetiver comes out painfully slow. That you'll get bored after getting 10 drops out. So try 10 of each if you want. I find that actually works quite well. And then you'll roll this on your chest, rub it in a little bit, and then wipe your hands across your pillow. Don't worry, it won't like stain or anything on your pillow. Works really good. Okay, we're gonna move into emotions. And we're almost done here, actually. We've only got a couple slides left. I wanna talk about emotions and talk about adaptive a bit. When we talk about emotions and essential oils, I think this is one of the easiest way for somebody to use an essential oil. So if you're having problems with your emotions, you're feeling, down or discouraged or stressed out or tired or just, on edge, the essential oil use is one of the easiest way to make a big difference in your day. We know that your sense of smell is actually the fastest connection to your limbic system. Your limbic system is the part of your brain that's it's in control of your memory and your emotions. It's the center for all of those things. It's in your frontal cortex, and it's connected to your olfactory bulb, which is where your sense of smell goes through, right? So you inhale, it lands on your olfactory bulb, it sends a message into your limbic system, which then has your brain react to a stimulus. And sometimes people think, okay, seriously, how does a smell actually change my emotions? I think we just don't study this enough to understand it, but there's a few ways of helping us to understand how effective and accurate this really is. So one, if you ever smelled something and it triggered a memory instantly, you're probably just you're keenly aware of how this works. So for example, you smell apple pie and you started to think about your grandmother, and you don't know why you started to think about her until you realize, oh wait, I just smelled apple pie. That's what the connection was. It smelled just like her. Sometimes the memory came into your brain before you identified what the smell was. So it's a very quick connection between your sense of smell and your limbic system. We also know in the medicine world, when somebody is being put under, they don't use a needle, they don't use a pill, they use a gas mask, right? The anesthetic is something that you inhale, and it goes into your olfactory bulb and it sends a message to your brain, which tells your brain to go to sleep. It's very cool how it works. And so it's a very similar process in how the essential oils are working in your body. So the sense of smell is going into your brain and doing something very powerful in there. And sometimes you're like, well, how am I supposed to know which oil to use? Like, I don't know. What if I want to be happier? What if I want to have more energy? What if I want to be less stressed? Which one do I pick? Honestly, there is a science to it, but it doesn't have to be complicated. It doesn't have to be a hard thing. If you want to just play guess this oil and, go through your oils and pick one and smell it and see if it works, you can do that. I actually find that your body is drawn to what you need. And so I will start smelling oils. And when I find one that I'm like, oh, this smells really good right now, that's the one I'll use for my emotional health. I'm like, okay, that's what I'm going to pick. But if you want a little bit more guidance, you can just Google emotional aromatherapy wheel. And it'll bring up a circle. I was hoping to find mine for this, but I couldn't find it because I have a nice wheel and it like spins. Anyways, but you can find them online. There's tons of them out there, and you just look up your emotion that you're experiencing. So, anger, unhappy, gloomy, lonely, depressed, anxious, whatever it is. You look at the emotion and it'll point to an essential oil that will help. And usually there's a couple of options that would work for that particular feeling, and that'll help guide you. It is important to note that citrus and mints are very uplifting. So if you're looking for energy and increased happiness, citrus and mints are really good for that. If you're looking for calming, grounding, bringing down, decreasing heart rate, slowing down, relaxing, herbs and grasses and flowers are really good at that. And then spices are also a little bit more invigorating and uplifting as well. And this mood matrix here, this is on your handout, will give you just a very basic idea. So these are 4 of doTERRA's essential or emotional oils that you can use. It's not in our emotions kit, but these are some of the 4 pillars that we had before we even got emotional aromatherapy oils. And serenity, balance, citrus bliss, and elevation. And you can kind of just look at a mood matrix like this and you think, well, if I'm feeling stressed, balance and elevation are the way to go. If I'm feeling like I'm not very peaceful, serenity and balance are the way to go. If I'm feeling tired, serenity and citrus bliss are the way to go. Okay, does that make sense? There's a couple for each. Okay, I want to talk briefly about adaptive. Adaptive is a new addition to doTERRA. It was released at convention, which was September of 2019. And so we've only had it in our hands for about 6 months. But I was completely blown away by this product. They released it as something to support mental wellness, and it does not disappoint. I use this all the time. Anytime I'm feeling stressed, it comes out. My husband's using it at work. He's a police officer, and there are times when he feels stressed out. He doesn't really show his stress. He's very calm exterior all the time. But every once in a while, I'll see him roll it on him. And even sometimes when we're parenting, we'll just pass the adaptive back to each other. Like, oh, this is really getting to us. We both need some of this. The oil blend is really good for that rewiring of your brain that we talked about, that interrupting your thought pattern. It's really good for disrupting your emotional responses and reframing the current situation that you're in. So I just find it really helpful in the moment. So I carry the roller bottle around with me. I find this is a good one to have in your pocket or in your purse or in your car. And as things happen to you that you're like really responding to in a negative way with like anger or fear or discouragement or anxiety, pull this out. It's going to make a big difference. The 15 ml bottle I typically use in the diffuser the most. So I keep this by my diffuser. And if the kids are like really crazy and jumping all over the place and just, I can tell that they're stressed and anxious and not themselves, I'll put that in the diffuser. If I'm feeling overwhelmed, I'll put it in while I'm, cooking or cleaning or trying to get some work done at home or whatever it is. I find it's really helpful. But the game changer, I think, of this collection is the capsules. Before COVID-19, I was taking it maybe like once a week, less than that, maybe once a month, just as needed. I thought if I had a really stressful day, or if I noticed that my heart rate was increased because something was stressing me out, I would take one and I would feel really not numb. I'm trying to think of the right word, but less likely to be engaged into these like negative spiraling emotions. Now that we're on quarantine and we're home all the time and I have to be on with the kids, like I have to keep them, going on their next activity all day long, just for all of our sanity, that I'm taking it every day. So every single morning I wake up, I'm like, well, today's going to be another stressful day. So here we go, take an adaptive. So what it does is it's got a lot of great ingredients. I'm only going to talk about one of them, which is the psyllium root, which is a form of a neurotransmitter called GABA. The reason that this is so powerful is because it decreases neuroexcitability. So that means that your brain will often react to things and something will happen and all of a sudden your neuroexcitability creates all these, responses, releasing positive and negative hormones, whatever it is. And this is what creates this emotional instability because we're like all over the place, up and down and all over. And what's happening is that right now, if you're looking for something that's going to kind of just stabilize your emotions and yet not make you fatigued, so it gives you an energetic and positive kind of flat line of emotions. I still experience emotions. I'm not like a zombie or a robot, but I found that it decreases that neuroexcitability in a way that makes me feel like I'm able to cope with things. So things will happen in my day and I'm like, oh, normally that would really get to me. And right now I'm feeling in control. I'm feeling like I'm able to tackle whatever's thrown at me. So it helps me to adapt. It helps me to feel stronger. It helps me to feel more in control. I really like it. Okay, that's adaptive. If you guys want to learn more, please reach out to me or whoever sent you to this webinar. There's so much cool stuff to learn about it. Okay, I wanted to share a couple quick things with you before we hop off. Here's a couple of diffuser blends. These are some really fun ideas of ways to decrease stress in your home or even help with sleep. You can use them at night. You can use them during the day. Adaptive and wild orange is amazing, or adaptive and lime. I sometimes like lime by itself. Lime is one of my favorite oils ever. I have it here. I smell it often and I mix it with just about everything. But so pick a favorite citrus oil, pair it with adaptive. You'll really love it. Forgive, balance, and breathe. This is an interesting one. 3 different blends mixed together, but I have actually tried it and I really like it. Forgive and balance they smell like very earthy, very like lots of tree smells in them. And then breathe offers this like lighter, minty, fresh smell. It's nice. Balance and wild orange. This is a common one for me as well. The next one I have never tried, peace, balance, and vetiver. That sounds good. And then the last one, citrus bliss, sandalwood, grapefruit, and elevation. Sounds like a powerhouse for that mid-afternoon sleepy crash that we all have when we're starting to feel a little bit tired and worn out. This is on your handout as well. This is a sample wellness box. So as you know, doTERRA has a really awesome points program. And this is just a suggestion in how to kind of put together what you want to order for a month, especially if you're looking to stock up on some of those emotional products. Adaptive, if you have not yet tried it, if you're somebody who deals with stress, any mental wellness, mental health issues at all, or emotional imbalances, this is the first thing I would recommend. You don't have to get the whole kit, but just get the adaptive in some way, shape, or form. It is now what I suggest to everybody who tells me that they have stress and anxiety in their lives, just because it's made such a difference. I did a study in October with 20 participants. 17 of them completed the study, so 3 didn't take the product throughout. 17 of them completed it, and they all reported a decrease in their anxious feelings. We were going by stress and anxiety, and we did the GAD-7, which is an actual recognized stress test that they use in hospitals and clinics. And we used the GAD-7, and it helped to determine what their stress score was before and what their stress score was after. And all 17 of them noted that they saw a decline in their stress and anxious feelings. Some of them were declining, 50%. So their score had gone down 50%. I had a couple of participants whose score went down 90%. So their scores were very high in the beginning, and they were down to a very minimal level of stress by the end of the study. And to me, it was just a reminder of how effective these things are. Okay, I want to show you this. This is for an advanced oiler. So somebody who has a lot of oils in their home and they want to try something called Symphony of the Cells. If you were at the Symphony of the Cells continuing education class, you already know about this technique and how you can use it, and that it's easy to do at home. Basically, you apply oils to a participant's back, so somebody in your home. You can do it to yourself as well, where you inhale, try to rub on your back, and then rub on the bottoms of your feet after that. And this is the list. It's called the Amoebic protocol. It's really powerful for emotional health. And when you look at the list, when I looked at the list, I noticed frankincense, neroli, rose, jasmine, and melissa are not cheap oils. These are not like, I'm going to buy them all on one order oils. I don't know, unless you are somebody who can do that. But what I noticed is that this is a powerhouse, heavy hitter, incredible protocol. And so I wanted to offer you an alternative to some of these oils. So if you don't have these on hand, I would suggest frankincense, balance, serenity, copaiba, and possibly adding adaptive. And to do those oils alongside some of the ones that are in here. So you always start with frankincense in Symphony of the Cells. That one's, I would say, is quite important. If you don't have that yet, you might want to add that to your collection. The carrier oil, like a coconut oil, is also important. And then move on to your other calming oils. And so if you don't have these, neroli, rose, jasmine, spikenard, melissa, centering blend is actually a yoga oil called Align. No. Which one was it? I looked it up. It is Align, sorry. There's 3 yoga oils. They all start with A, and I get them all confused. So centering blend, Align, you could swap out for balance very easily if you don't have Align. Douglas fir, you could swap out for any of the fir oils or tree type oils. Spearmint, you could swap out for peppermint. So you can make some you know what I mean, swaps in order to make that work. Okay, we're gonna stay on for anybody who has any questions. I think we've got a couple of things in the chat. Okay, if you have a question, you can pop it in the chat box, and If you'd like us to answer, we can answer there, or you can unmute yourself and just ask on here. There's not very many of us on tonight. So feel free to ask a question if you have one about sleep, stress, and emotions, or oils in general.